It's a beautiful day here on the Medina Square. I'm Matt with Medina Minute. Today we're going to go into the Visitors Bureau and sit and talk with a few friends from in and around Medina and hear what's going on around town. Please come in and join me. Well, good morning. Today we're here with Sandy Hinkle from Feeding Medina County, and we're going to learn a lot about Sandy's time in Medina, what she does with the organization, and her thoughts on the city. Sandy, welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you have quite a history in Medina, right?
Well, we actually came to Medina probably 35 years ago.
Okay.
And that's a story in itself, how we ended up here. But
how did you end up here? What brought you here?
Since you want to know that story. Well, my husband at the time got a job working in this area. So we came here with 5 kids, a dog and a gerbil, and traveled a semicircle around Lake Erie looking for a place to rent.
And the gerbil liked Medina?
Well, actually, the gerbil actually died from the heat. But we had a couple days left, and finding a rental place with 5 kids is pretty hard.
It's tough, yeah.
So we were about 2 days out from having to go back to Indiana, where we were coming from at the time, and we pulled into the square. And as soon as we rolled in, I said, "This is where I'm raising my kids."
Yeah.
And
nice.
I am now on the 3rd generation of children being raised here in Medina.
Oh my gosh.
So.
What was it about this when you rolled into the square? What was it?
It was warm. It was welcoming. It was, I think it was June when we came here, and just we pulled in. We must have come up Court Street, and seeing the town square and the buildings was just, to me, it was something I had never seen before. It was like I stepped back into time, and you know.
So, since you love the square so much, do you have a favorite building on the square, or something that really makes you stop and pause and think, that's it?
Well, I think the buildings that caught my eye when I pulled into town were obviously the courthouse, and then Old Phoenix Bank, which is, you just can't miss it.
Right,
which now, of course, we know is Huntington. But the architecture of those was just stunning to me. And, I look at the fire station, our museum, and I just love it. That was another building but now it's so beautiful because, the way it's painted and how it stands out. And I have to tell you, when my boys, I had 2 that were maybe they were 2 years apart, so maybe 9 and 7.
Okay.
Their favorite store on the square was Whitey's, Army Navy.
So many people.
And we used to go into that store, and the wood floors, all of that, and of course now it's courthouse, and kind of things come full circle because now my son manages the courthouse there.
Oh, okay, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Your kids were in school here, and I know when we had the bicentennial last year, you were very involved with the memorial pool and being part of getting that reopened and everything. What was your connection to that?
Well, after we came here, I decided that I wanted to go to school.
Okay.
Go to college. So I had to find jobs to pay for college.
Sure.
Of course, if you're a mother of 5 children, which I was, that was a little difficult to find a job. So the only person that really offered me a job in this town was Bill Dunn, who was the director of Parks and Recreation at the time. Okay. So I used to, I worked in Parks and Rec. I was the oldest person ever working in Parks and Rec with the college kids that would come home for the summer. And we had some amazing, all of our parks had things going on. Yeah. Every one of them had activities for kids all summer, which was another thing about Medina that was so unique. Our kids never had to worry about a place to go in the summer. Okay. And the activity was constant, including the activity on the square, which not nearly what it is today. Sure. Nothing what it was, but we used to utilize that park for the kids in Parks and Rec a lot. So eventually Bill Dunn, I always just say, if you have a job at the pool, let me know. And one year he called and he said, "How would you like to manage the pool?" And I said, "Sure, what do I have to do?" And he said, "Oh, it's no problem, I'll teach you." And he didn't tell me that when you empty the pool to open it, that there's like 50 dead animals that are laying there, and you have to go to the deep end and shovel them out. So So my passion for the pool has always been there. You
Yeah.
know, the pools, I was heartbroken to see it close. I was
Sure.
happy it opened. And it's a place where our kids can go and hang out and feel safe
Yeah.
and learn how to swim, because
it's
that's a
important.
lost art.
Yeah, a lot of kids don't know how.
It is.
So how, with your involvement with the youth early on, how have you seen the town change? What have you noticed?
You know, my kids are all out of high school, long gone.
Sure,
And
sure.
my grandkids are out of high school, most of them. I always find it interesting that our park still attracts people of all ages, including the youth.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find that that's never changed. The other thing I see that's interesting is when you take little kids up to the park, and you know, the younger kids, the first place they go is that cannon, to climb on that cannon. And it's funny because when I brought my great-grandson, we came up here one day for chill and we went to the park.
Yeah.
And where's the first place he went? Was
Right
to
to
the
the
cannon.
cannon.
And I thought, my sons went there, you know, so now here's my great-grandson going
Yeah,
there.
that's
So,
true, that's true.
You know, so our community, I mean, this park, this town, continues to attract the kids. You just watch the
Yeah.
kids walk around the square, they're hanging out in the park. I just think it's great. That piece has never changed. And yeah, we've built bigger schools, we've built new schools, all of those things, but some things never change.
And now we have Pokemon Go. So a couple years ago,
Yes.
people would call. It was like, Matt, there's like 50 people walking around the square looking at their phones, and it's 11 o'clock at night. What's going on?
Yeah.
And you're right. There has been kind of a transition of how the square is used, but it is still an attraction and brings
Yeah.
people up here.
Yeah.
And it's cool. There's people of all ages and families out walking around with their phones, chasing something I still don't understand. But they do it.
And you know, when I came here 30-some years ago, one of the realtor that rented us the house said, "Oh, you'll have to go up to the square for the concerts on Friday."
Yeah.
Well, that hasn't changed one bit, because on Friday nights when there's a concert, you will see people of all ages
Yeah.
walking uptown with their lawn chairs and their blankets, and that is unchanged in 30-some years.
Yeah. Well, 150 some years actually.
Well,
I think it's
but
the
I mean,
second
in my
oldest community band. But yeah, what a tradition.
Yeah, and it doesn't change.
Yeah.
So when you say, you know, what's different, oh, some of the storefronts have changed and things like that, but for the most part, our community hasn't changed.
So I know that you're executive director of Feeding Medina County. What have you seen changed socially, or maybe the needs in our community? Because you have a really different perspective from your job.
I think the thing that this job has allowed me to do is give back to this community
Sure.
that I have loved since I came here. And we oftentimes, we don't realize we live in this wonderful town that looks like it's something from a picture postcard.
Sure.
And we don't think about the fact that we have an issue with poverty, with those that are food insecure. We have 7% of our population that is living in poverty, and we have others that are living below poverty. So making sure that we address that need in this community. And I have to say that Medina is a community that takes care of its own.
That's true. Absolutely.
And so with that being said, being able to do what I do for 1,020 kids every week, pack weekender bags, 350 seniors every month, 150 families at a food distribution, that only happens. I don't get any funding for that from any place. So that
Right.
only happens because of the generosity of the people that live in this community. And countywide, it's a countywide agency. But so the weekender bags is designed for kids who are on free and reduced meals, so
Yeah.
that they eat over the weekend. Because
Okay.
when they're in school, we know that they're getting breakfast and lunch, but when they go home, for some of those children, there's nothing.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so that bag, gets them through the weekend, gets them back to school on Monday, so when they go to school, they're ready to learn.
Sure.
We're starting to focus on seniors who live in their homes that don't have, just because they're not living in a facility, housing facility doesn't mean that they're not food insecure.
Right. Right.
So that's our new focus, is looking to how do we get the food delivered to people's homes that can use some support. And that's an endeavor that we're taking on probably starting April 1st this year.
Really?
And then also the other thing is I'm working with all the school districts, and just got through meeting with Medina High School to figure out ways that we can implement food pantries at the high school and middle school,
Okay.
open to any student, because it's 1 out of 5 kids that are food insecure.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what their age is. It's still 1 out of 5.
Wow.
So
you're a busy woman.
most of the time,
This
yes.
is
I
kind of a
sleep very little.
24/7 for you. Yeah.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you have such a responsibility to coordinate this that it's always present on your mind.
Always.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do you ever get a chance to just relax and sit?
Sometimes.
So,
Not enough. I need a life.
I mean, yeah, sometimes you do need a life. So when you have a life, I mean, what are your hobbies? What do you like to read? Do you travel? How do you check out for a little bit just to have Sandy time?
Well, I don't do it nearly enough, but
Sure.
Taking a vacation, making sure that
Yeah.
I'm away from here and just on my own. Last year, year before, about a year and a half ago, I just got in my car and I drove for 9 days up the coast of Lake Michigan and stopped wherever I wanted to stop.
That's cool.
Pulled out my beach chair, reflected on life, and that,
Yeah.
or I'll go to the ocean. My brother has a place down there, I had a place down there, and just sit on the water. So I like to do those kinds of things, and someday when I retire, I'll do more of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But
So you've been in town about 35 years. You clearly know this town. You spend a lot of time here. When you have visitors from out of town or family, what are those things you say, you got to do this, you got to see this, you got to eat here?
Okay.
What's like your checklist?
well, first things first, they always have to come to the square.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I do a lot of posting on Facebook, and
Yes, you
my
do.
my posting a lot of times are just pictures of the square, pictures of the gazebo, and my caption is always "I love Medina," and I have classmates from 55 years ago who say to me, "I've got to come to Medina. I've got to come and see this
Cool.
town." So first things first, they always have to come. I bring them uptown, and then when it comes to restaurants, oh my gosh. Restaurants
Your
galore.
restaurants on the square, what's your default? For me, it's the pesto and sausage pizza at Courthouse, and the President Carter burger at PJ Marley's, and I guess Turkey Rachel Reuben at Sully's.
Wow.
I guess that's not my go-to. I have a couple.
You have a big list.
I do.
But you're here more than
I
I
like
am.
food. I like food.
You get a
You can
chance to
tell.
go out and eat.
I mean, what do you crave on the square?
Well, I have to tell you, I think I have to give John Kohler a plug for his
Absolutely.
his squash soup. His butternut squash soup
Yeah.
is by far the best. And the burgers at PJ Marley's, you can't because it's Killer Meats.
Right.
So local.
Another local.
Yeah.
What else is coming up for Feeding Medina County? Where do you see the organization going, or what's your passion where you want to see it go?
Well, I don't think anybody should be without food.
Okay.
And there is a solution to that. There really is. There's no reason why we have people, whether they're young or they're old, having to worry about where's my next meal coming from.
Sure.
So my big thing is thinking about the older kids.
Yeah.
Those older kids, the junior high and high school kids, and I get emails from teachers and those levels all the time.
Wow.
I have kids. Can you pack bags for them?
Yeah.
Well, I just can't take that on. We have to stay true to our mission, feeding
True.
the young, feeding the old. But that middle group of kids needs support too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So working with the high schools and the middle schools to do pantries on site, there's not a college campus today that doesn't have food pantries on site.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So why do we not have them in our high schools and
Yeah,
middle
true.
schools? And make it open to any kid that wants anything.
Okay.
Whether it's the athlete after school and that way there's no stigma attached to it. So
Yeah.
that I think when we get there, then I will feel like we've arrived.
Okay.
And I don't know when that's going to be. So.
Well, I hope it's sooner than later.
Well, I do
we,
too.
We certainly wish you the best of luck. Thank you for what you do in our county and our community, and for your passion. And it's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Well,
Thank you.
thanks. Thanks, Matt.